I want you to imagine that you're walking into this really important meeting and you're fully prepared, but for some reason, you realize at some point in the meeting that you already lost before you even opened your mouth. Maybe you're trying to ask for more of whatever or ask for approval for something. And you realize at some point, okay, that I'm kind of wasting my time in this meeting. And the decision was already made. I don't even know why I'm sitting in this meeting with this person right now because the real strategy session happened at some point earlier behind closed doors. Guess what? I wasn't in that meeting. This kind of thing happens all the time at work. The real game isn't always played in the official meeting. Sometimes it's played in the hallway, over lunch, in quick conversations before the meeting. And if you're not part of those power moves, you're missing out. To get ahead, you need to master the art of the behind the scenes influence. To get ahead, you need to master the art of behind the scenes influence. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Because no one works harder than the person who hates asking people for help. And I used to be one of those people. I used to be the I've got it. And if anyone, I would pick up all of the bags and I'm carrying them and I know it's heavy and I know I'm sweating and I know it's hard work. And someone would come by and then like, hey, you want some help with that? And I'm like, no, I've got it. And it would just roll off the tongue real quick. No one works harder than the person who hates asking people for help or who hates accepting help. I'm going to throw that in there too. And I've lived this personally myself. I am recovering from this. So if you see me and you see me walking with some bags or doing the most all by myself and you offer help, I am going to take it. I'm going to accept that help and I'm going to say thank you. I appreciate you so much. And it took a long time for me to get to this point. So hopefully this is going to help you if you're in that situation where sometimes you just feel like, I've got this, but then you also get stressed out sometimes and wonder, why don't people want to help me? Well, it's because you said no to all of the help that you got in the past. Y'all, I apologize. I'm recording all of this four-part series all together, and I'm on a rant today. So you're going to get a little bit of my ranting. I want to illustrate this with a very quick story. I want to tell you about someone named Rachel. She's super smart, always delivers. She's the kind of person who believes that if you put your head down, you do good work, and don't get caught up in the politics, you're going to get rewarded. And to be fair, that approach worked for her until it didn't. So Rachel and her team, they'd been working on this really big cost-saving proposal for weeks. There were lots of moving parts, lots of research that had to happen. They had to look into some best practices, figure out how can we come up with a super clear rollout plan that works. And her VP was really excited about it and even asked her to present it at the next leadership meeting. So everything seems to be going well, right? She walks in, she's feeling confident. She's thinking this is a no-brainer. The numbers speak for themselves. But something was off. As she was presenting, she noticed that the other department heads were kind of giving each other these side looks. There were a couple of nods here and there, but it felt weird. It felt like there was some kind of inside joke that she wasn't in on, like she was missing something. So she gets through the whole presentation and she's like, I'm happy to answer any questions. And that's when the vibe really started to shift. We have Eric, who was another director. Eric jumps in and says, that's really interesting, Rachel, but we were actually talking about doing something different, going in a different direction last week. And a few of us got together. We landed on something that might actually align a little bit better with where the company's heading. And Rachel heard this and she thought, okay, well, that would have been great if they told me that last week, right? Why am I just hearing about this now. And then this other person, Lisa, pops up and she's like, yeah, we think a phased rollout is going to make so much more sense right now. We don't want to duplicate efforts. And then this other guy, Mark from finance, pops up and he's like, yeah, plus we can already find some cost efficiencies that are built into this strategy that we have. We need to look at how your plan fits in with that before we make any big moves. So, as you can see, she's sitting there, Rachel's listening, listening, listening. And as they're talking, the more and more it sounds like they're not going to go with her plan. They're picking holes in her plan. And within minutes, her whole proposal is on the chopping block. The same VP who hyped up her idea was now nodding along with everybody else in the room like this was the plan all along. And she didn't even have any time to recover. She was totally caught off guard. It happens all the time. So after the meeting, she pulls one of her peers aside and she says, hey, what just happened here? Can you explain to me? Like she's red in the face. What happened? And they kind of sighed and they said, well, yeah, the department heads, they met earlier this week. They decided to go with a united front, and it just made it easier to get buy-in from the VP. And it's not personal, Rachel. You just weren't in the room. Can you imagine? She thought that she was walking into a win-win situation, an easy win situation. She was going to get approval. She was asked to come in there and present to them, but instead she was blindsided. She was embarrassed. She was frustrated. And honestly, she felt played. Like her work didn't matter. It didn't even, she didn't matter enough to them to even get an invite to that meeting. And what hurt most was realizing that while she was focusing on getting all of her facts straight and doing all the research, other people were focusing on getting aligned. So in that moment, Rachel realized something big. She realized that the meeting isn't where the decision happens. The decision oftentimes happens before the meeting. And, you know, of course, sometimes the meeting is where the decision happens, but you can intentionally set things up so that it goes in your favor once you get there. So if you've ever sat in a meeting ready to present only to realize that everyone else is already on the same page except for you, and the more you listen, the more you realize that the decision was already made before you open your mouth. You thought you were prepared. You had the research, the strategy, the numbers. If you've ever walked out of that meeting frustrated, thinking, what just happened? How did I not see that coming? This episode is for you. I think one of the reasons why people get frustrated with corporate life is because they aren't prepared for office politics. And because they aren't proactively working to shape the narrative, they find themselves reacting instead of actually leading. So today, I want to touch on some hidden power moves that actually shape the workplace, why they happen, how to recognize when you're being shut out, and most importantly, how to make sure that you're in the room before the room. You're right. You're in the meeting before the meeting. And to drive this home, we're going to look at what happened to Rachel, a leader who did everything right, but somehow still got blindsided in a meeting that meant a lot to her. All right, so we're going to get into it. And remember, this is all a part of my convergence system. We talk about receipts, and there's a whole course that you can get on how to set up documentation so that you can get noticed and ahead at work and do it in a way that people love you for it, not feel like you're bragging and boasting and really full of yourself. So we have the receipts, we have the support. Today we're talking about support. In this series, it's all about support. The other parts of that four-part convergent system, we have receipts, support, clarity, and courage. I really haven't gotten into clarity and courage as much. I'm starting with receipts and support. The lesson here, office politics aren't optional. Rachel had always believed that she could stay away from politics by focusing on results. But this experience showed her that office politics aren't optional. You're either playing the game or the game is actually playing you. And you don't have to like office politics. But if you ignore them, you're going to get blindsided. Hear me on this. So, how do you know if this is happening to you? Here are the red flags. Decisions keep catching you off guard. People seem aligned before the meeting even starts. Your ideas don't get traction, even if they're solid. Right? Sometimes you might throw an idea out that's half baked, fine. It doesn't get traction, fine. But if you really took the time to research and cross your T's, dot your I's, all of that, and you have a solid idea and it doesn't gain traction, this could be why. And when you finally hear about a big change, it feels like everyone else knew first. It's another red flag. So, why does this happen? I'm going to propose something interesting. I'm going to propose that this happens because people in leadership don't like uncertainty. They don't want debates, they want buy-in. They want alignment before they walk into a room. They want to know what to expect. So, meeting in advance, tallying up who's on your side, finding out why they will or won't support you is a common way to reduce some of that uncertainty. So, how do you stop getting shut out of these power moves? You need a proactive strategy. And what I'm about to share with you works. And it works best when you first start a new job or a project before the impressions are formed, before the reputation is there. But I'm not going to say that it's not going to work for you if you've been in your job for 5 years, because it can still work for you if you at least have a neutral reputation at work. If you're listening today and if people don't like you, or if you've developed a reputation for being really hard to work with, you're going to have to listen to my episodes about building trust and psychological safety first. You might even need one-on-one support and coaching to talk about how can we repair your reputation and rebuild your relationship equity. And you're going to need a tailored plan for that. We can help you with that if that's you too. All right. So I want you to do this with me. I want you to get a piece of paper. I want you to get a pen, a pencil, a marker, whatever you have. And I want you to, or even plug this into your phone, take some notes. I want you to think about one project that you're working on that's important to you. Okay? Just one project, lock it in. It's important. Boom. Write that down at the top of your paper. What is that project? Step one, identify the power players, the real decision makers here. Who actually influences decisions made on this project? Who are the people who are quietly shaping the conversation before it even reaches leadership? Who does your VP listen to? These are the people that you need to connect with before those major meetings. They can help you frame your message and talk through key points that are actually going to resonate with your VP. I use VP because I'm usually talking to people at that level, but you can replace VP with whoever is making the final decision. It could be your supervisor, it could be a board member, it could be someone in the community that you're working with. If you're working with a school, it could be the principal, it could be teachers. If you're in a hospital setting, it could be the doctors, it could be the insurance processor, you name it, plug in that title. Who is actually making those decisions? And pro tip, I want you to think about how can you get decision makers in the loop early on and at different checkpoints all along the way. So when you make them feel like they are actually a part of shaping the idea, they're going to be more likely to say yes to your final proposal. That is a pro tip. That is a psychology hack for you. At any point in time, when you are trying to get buy-in from people, when you're trying to push big changes at your company, little changes at your company, anything, getting that person involved in the process upfront and throughout will increase your chances of an approval later on, because it's hard to poo-poo something that you were involved in. When you're cooking something and you go and you ask someone, hey, can you taste test this? You know it tastes good, but you just kind of want them to come in and test it out and see, hey, what do you think might be missing here? Maybe a little bit of salt, maybe a little bit of pepper, maybe a little bit of thyme, a little bit of rosemary. What is missing from this equation? Is there anything that I can add to this, take away from this, anything that I haven't considered yet? And once you do that, they go, oh, this is great. I love it. It's hard for them to take that love back later when they get a full plate or full bowl of what you're about to serve them, right? It's just like that. Get them involved because when you do, you are setting yourself up to have support all throughout the process and making it harder for them to back out and pretend, oh, that was them. I'm throwing them under the bus. They did the thing. I was not involved in this thing that they built. So, very, very important. Figure out your power players, get them involved. Step 2, build your inner circle. This is going to be your pre-meeting strategy crew. Who already sees the value of your ideas? Can you give them a heads up before the meeting so you can get their support? And would they actually be willing to bring up your point first to frame the discussion in your favor? So sometimes that is the secret, right? Is you not saying, hey, we need to go in this direction. And we were talking about this. So, and would you be willing to share more information about that? And you're like, thank you. I'm so glad that you're giving me an opportunity to share my perspective on this. Let me tell you about all the research that I found. And yes, we need to go after this. Sometimes it's helpful for someone else, someone who has maybe more clout than you do, to bring it up first and to open the door for you to come in and share your expertise. So sometimes you have to do that, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Step 3, secure buy-in before the meeting. So before any major meeting, that's important. You want to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success. Test the waters. Float your idea by people who can actually support you in the room. These are going to be your allies and your collaborators. Some questions to ask are, what do y'all think about my proposal? If you're in the Northeast, what do you think about my proposal? Right? What do you think about this? What objections do I need to be prepared for? I want your support on this. Are you with me? Are you going to back me up? These are questions that you can ask the other person. Never walk into a big meeting with a brand new idea that hasn't been vetted through anyone, right? Make sure that you have taken the time to go through this process. If you want to be in the room where it happens, you need to start shaping the conversations before the doors even open. I want to leave you with that. That is such an important concept to get in your system. You need to start shaping the conversations before the doors even open. You want to find a way to connect what you're proposing to their priorities. If you care about the impact that your service is having on the community, and the person you're speaking to is a finance person and they care about the bottom line numbers, well, it might be important for you to think about how that impact on the community translates into dollars and cents. Are we hurting the community in some way? If we are, how does that hurt our bottom line? How do negative reviews hurt our bottom line? How do positive reviews help our bottom line? How can you speak about what you're proposing in language that they appreciate and that's right in line with what they're thinking about as their top priorities? Position it as something that's going to benefit everyone, not just you. That's also important. That we mentality. This is going to help us in this way. This is the why we should go after this. And you want to plan for potential objections. What concerns might other department heads have? And how can you address them before they even bring them up? So start thinking about that. And if you're thinking, okay, I get it, but how do I know if I'm already being shut out? I've got something for you. I do. I want to read an email from someone who's been dealing with exactly the same issue. It says, "Hi, Dr. Walker. I hope you're doing well. I want to reach out because honestly, I'm feeling stuck and I'm not sure what to do next. Lately, I've been hitting a wall at work. No matter how hard I try, it feels like I'm either spinning my wheels or running into roadblocks I didn't even know existed. I've been putting in the effort, but not seeing the progress I expected. A few things have been bothering me, and I love your perspective. First, I feel like I'm constantly out of the loop. Decisions are being made that directly impact my work, and I either find out at the last minute or after the fact. I've tried being more proactive, I've tried asking questions, but sometimes I don't even know who to ask. It's frustrating because I want to contribute in a meaningful way, but I can't if I don't have the full picture. Second, I don't think my work is getting noticed. I keep hearing that visibility is important, but I'm not sure how to get my ideas in front of the right people without coming across like I'm bragging. It seems like some people just naturally get pulled into conversations while I'm sitting wondering, how do I get in? Then there's the fact that I'm constantly troubleshooting things on my own. I know I should be probably reaching out more, but I'm not always sure who would actually be willing to help or if I'm even asking the right questions. I don't want to seem like I don't know what I'm doing, but I also can't keep spending hours trying to figure out things that probably have a simple answer. Maybe I'm overthinking this. Maybe it's been on my mind a lot lately. Have you ever dealt with something like this? I'd really appreciate any advice or perspective. Thanks for taking the time to read this. Looking forward to your thoughts, Jack. Okay, let's break this down. I said it in the last episode, so I'm going to say this again. The right people can shortcut years of struggle, but only if you put in the effort to connect with them. So, Jack's goal is to become the person that people think of first. He's tired of being an afterthought. He's tired of wasting his time. And that only happens when you're seen, valued, and positioned correctly. I talk about this a lot in my course about the 4-part convergence system to getting ahead at work. I'll include a link to that in the description. So, if you're focusing on support, which is one part of that system, and that's what I think we should focus on here with Jack. We want Jack to not have to walk into another meeting with good ideas but no support. So, what I would say to Jack is to take some time and write down the names of people who have real influence over the decisions that impact him. And I'd say, Jack, have at least one conversation with someone that you trust to get a good read on where things stand. Are there already side conversations that are happening about this? What's the general sentiment? Are people supportive? Are they resistant? Are they indifferent to what you're trying to do? Have any key leaders already aligned behind a different plan? Before the meeting, Jack needs to find at least one person to speak to and to get them to say yes to speaking up in the meeting to show support. And he's going to meet with them in advance so that he knows that he's not going in alone. He's going to soft launch that idea during a coffee break and see, how do people actually react to this? And when Jack finally goes into that meeting, he's going to use we language instead of I language to make it very clear that it's not just an idea for him, but this is a community effort. Jack's going to be in a much better position to get his proposal approved if he follows this method instead of just working on the proposal by himself in a silo and then showing up in the meeting to present it without preparing everyone for it in advance. So to recap, first, map out who actually influences decisions. Next, start having those pre-meeting conversations to test the waters. Secure allies who are going to support you in the room. And then finally, make sure that your ideas aren't just heard, but they're backed up by the right people before the meeting even starts. So I want to close today with a public service announcement for anyone who is dead set on staying out of office politics, but you still want to get noticed and you want to move up in the company. You don't want to be ineffective in your role, right? Office politics are not optional. Ignoring them doesn't make them go away. It just means that you're letting other people control the game. I want you to think about the last big decision that impacted you. Who actually shaped that decision? Were you a part of that conversation? And if not, now's the time to start making your way into those rooms. Let's make a pact to start shaping the conversations before the doors even open. Let's make a pact to get in the habit of building relationships before we need them, finding out what's important to each person in the inner circle, and start to check in before those important meetings. I know you can do this. I believe in you. And when you do, I want to hear about it. Send me a note at Lead with Levity on Instagram or on LinkedIn. I want to know how this method worked for you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Lead with Levity podcast. To get resources mentioned in this episode and find out what we're all about, check us out at leadwithlevity.com.